Jesus says, whatever you do, don't cave in. Don't shrink back or go underground. Don't pull your light under a bushel. Honor Him. Before we close, have you ever been on a flight and heard the airline attendant say these words? In the unlikely event of a water landing, your seat cushion can be used as a flotation device. Have you ever heard that? So, in that wisdom, in the unlikely event that we wind up living in a culture where there's overt hostility and persecution, can we play out in our minds what we're to do? I want you to think about it. I mean, it's comfortable in here this morning, but there are places right now where people are gathering to do what we're doing. They're listening to teaching from the Bible at the risk of imprisonment and even death. There are some of you in this room who have family who live in the Middle East, and as they worship, they take their lives in their own hands. In the unlikely event that human history will take a drastic change and put us in a culture like that, can I pose some questions that you can answer honestly in your own spirit? Here's the first one. If the threat of imprisonment or beatings hung over our coming together on Sundays, would you come? If the threat of imprisonment or beatings hung over coming to the communion table, sharing your faith, or reading the Bible, would you still do it? If the government decides that they're going to tax churches and take away tax exemptions for charitable gifts, would you stop giving? I mean, it's hard to grasp the thought, but on that hillside that day, over 2,000 years ago, Jesus wasn't blowing smoke about persecution. He knew what was going to unfold in just a couple of decades. You see, one of the single most heinous times of persecution of Christians in the history of the world was going to be taking place. People who were right there on the hillside that day were going to be dragged into the Colosseum and ripped apart by wild animals. People were going to be tortured. They're going to be sawed in two, burned to death for admitting to being Christ followers. So here is Jesus knowing what's coming, and He's saying, blessed are you who stand firm when you take ridicule, when you take beatings, and when you are thrown into the Colosseum. Blessed are you who stand firm and don't cave in and don't shrink back. And beyond just saying stand firm, blessed are you if you do, you know what He's going to say. He says, I'll tell you, smile on the inside when your number is up, because great is your reward in heaven. And again, from the pages of church history, you know what we read, not just church history, history in general. We read of families, moms and dads, and circles of kids, standing in the Colosseums holding hands as the lions are about ready to be released from their cages. And they're singing worship songs, moments away from the time where they will be ravaged to death for believing in and following Christ. Here they are singing worship songs because they said, great will be our reward in heaven. The Master said so. Jesus said so. Heaven is real. And when you die, your candle just doesn't go out. You live on throughout eternity in heaven or in hell. Again, Jesus would say, if you don't have it settled which place you're going, settle it soon. There are no guarantees. Life is uncertain. Life is uncertain. And Jesus said you can be certain about something, though. You can be certain about heaven. You can be certain about heaven by repenting of your sin, turning to faith and trust in Jesus, inviting Him into your life. And on His merits alone, heaven can be yours forever, for sure. To just simply admit what everybody already knows about you in the room, that you're not perfect. To ask Him to be your rescuer. For those of us who are already sure of heaven, I'm going to challenge you, as we did through the summer months, to have uncommon courage. To do what is right in God's sight. Forget what the world says is right. They're changing their standards right and left. How many of you remember when Fred Astaire and those guys were dancing around, it was perfectly cool to be smoking cigarettes. Now, if you light up a cigarette somewhere, everybody looks at you like you're some kind of crazy person. Tide of public opinion changes so quickly. But you're going to take some hits along the way. Don't cave in. Stand firm. Smile on the inside. Knowing no matter what price you have to pay for believing in and trusting in and following Christ in this world, the great is your reward in heaven.